Have you ever grinded a game account to max level, hit rank 1 on the server, got full legendary gear, and then manually pressed the delete button? Most of you think great empires fall because their enemies are too strong. But no. The truth is, 90% of the greatest empires in history self-destruct from the inside. Welcome back, guys, to part 2 of the Napoleon Wars series. If in part 1 we saw Napoleon carrying his team and outplaying all of Europe, in this video I'll show you exactly how this emperor threw his entire empire out the window with just a few catastrophic moves. And the lesson here isn't just history. It's a masterclass in risk management that every leader needs to know. In 1807, after the Treaty of Tilsit, the map of Europe was almost entirely painted in French green. Napoleon was literally the admin of the mainland server. But out on the ocean, the British Royal Navy was an absolute raid boss. Unable to swim across to strike London, Napoleon bitterly launched an economic attack: the Continental System. It was basically a massive embargo, forcing everyone in the server to stop trading with Britain to starve them out. But in the corner of the map, a small country named Portugal said, hard pass. Portugal said, bro, we've been tight with Britain forever. If we don't trade, our economy crashes. Napoleon was like, oh, so you want to defy the admin? Immediately. He borrowed military access from his ally, Spain, to march over and smash Portugal. Everything would have been smooth and quick if Napoleon hadn't suddenly gotten greedy. Seeing the Spanish royal family fighting among themselves, he seized the opportunity to imprison the Spanish king and shoved his own biological brother, Joseph, onto the throne. A blatant account theft. And here is value bomb number 1 of this video. Never force a change in your user base's core habits. Putting a Frenchman to rule Spain completely outraged their national pride. They exploded. But the Spanish didn't line up to fight head-on like nobles. Their forces were too thin for a 1v1. So they created a new meta, a term that would enter global military dictionaries: guerrilla, or guerrilla warfare. They played the camper style, hiding in the bushes, sniping, ambushing supply wagons, poisoning water wells, and fading deep into the forests. Napoleon's elite army, used to massive set-piece battles on the plains, was completely clueless against this tactic. From 1808 to 1814, the Spanish theater was like a bleeding ulcer, a giant meat grinder that drained the life, money, and buried over 300,000 of France's most elite soldiers. Napoleon famously called this his Spanish ulcer. Sounds familiar. It's exactly like investing in a failing project, but because your ego is too big to cut your losses. You keep pouring money in to win it back, and eventually, go bankrupt. If you're feeling this, drop a like right now so we can move to an even more catastrophic throw. While Napoleon was hard stuck in Spain, Austria stood from afar, rubbing its hands together. Sweet. The French are busy getting ganked in the jungle. Let's go backdoor their main base. So Austria triggered the 5th coalition, confidently declaring war. But Austria forgot to check their opponent's stats. Even busy Napoleon managed to pivot, bringing his main army to absolutely crush Austria at the Battle of Wagram in 1809. Austria once again had to kneel, surrendering land and paying massive war indemnities, winning every battle. But Napoleon had a relentless anxiety. Who would inherit this massive server? His wife, the beautiful Josephine, who had been with him since his startup days, was now older and couldn't bear him a male heir, even though he loved Josephine madly. For the sake of his career, power, and legacy, Napoleon regretfully signed the divorce papers. Right after that, to solidify his throne's legitimacy, he made a highly pragmatic move. He forced a marriage with Princess Marie-Louise of Austria, the daughter of the very Austrian king he just battered. This marrying the enemy's daughter for the royal bloodline buff worked instantly. Soon after, a baby boy was born. Everything seemed perfect. The emperor had an heir, the empire was stable. But the truth is, the real storm was just beginning. Here it is. Guys, get your pens and paper ready, because this is the ultimate historical case study on hubris. The greatest throw that paved the way for a genius's downfall. Remember his best friend, Russian Tsar Alexander I, from the wooden raft in part 1. By this time, Russia was sick of the French economic embargo because it was destroying their agriculture and exports. The Tsar decided to tear up the peace treaty and reopen trade with Britain. Feeling betrayed, the server admin's ego was deeply bruised. Napoleon was furious. He decided he had to teach Russia a bloody lesson to deter the entire continent. Napoleon gathered 600,000 troops, an unimaginable number, the largest army in history at the time, speaking multiple languages, French, Italian, German, Polish. He aggressively crossed the Niemen River, marching straight into the vast Russian territory. Now I have a question for you watching this video. Why is bringing 600,000 elite troops to attack a weaker country actually a mistake? Drop your predictions in the comments right now before I expose the truth. 3, 2, 1. The truth is logistics. Napoleon's corps system used to be incredibly overpowered because of its mobility. French soldiers didn't carry much food. They fought fast, won fast, and looted food from the enemy in rich lands like Italy or Germany to survive, self-sustaining. But Russia was different. It was too vast. The roads were like swamps, and agriculture was incredibly sparse. More importantly, the Russian Tsar wasn't stupid. He knew a 1v1 against Napoleon's main force meant instant deletion. So, the Russians deployed a brutally ruthless, meta-scorched earth tactics. The Russian army just kept retreating, pulling deep into the motherland, avoiding direct combat. And the most terrifying part was as they retreated. They manually burned down their own villages, filled in water wells, and torched food silos. When the mighty French army marched in, all they found was scorched, blackened earth. Not a single grain of wheat to farm, not a drop of clean water to drink. The French army's hunger bar plummeted. The formations started dropping not from enemy bullets, but from dysentery, starvation, and exhaustion. Every 10 kilometers, thousands of soldiers fell. Finally, in September 1812, the two sides clashed at the Battle of Borodino, the bloodiest PvP match of the 19th century, with over 70,000 dead and wounded in a single day. Both sides suffered horrific losses, but the Russian army proactively retreated again, leaving the door wide open for Napoleon to march straight into the capital, Moscow. Napoleon eagerly rode his horse through the gates of Moscow. He was certain he had won, sitting comfortably in the Kremlin palace, waiting for the Russian Tsar to carry a white flag and surrender. But no, that very night, flames erupted. The Russians themselves set fire to Moscow, burning it to the ground. They would rather destroy their historical capital than let the enemy loot it or use it for winter quarters. Napoleon sat in the ashes, warming himself by the burning city, waiting for a surrender letter for over a month and a half. The Tsar simply left him on red. And then, the real nightmare arrived. The Russian winter. Realizing he had walked into a trap with no food to survive, Napoleon frantically ordered a retreat in late October. But it was too late. The Crawl Back Home was the most brutal survival horror movie in history. Temperatures plummeted to minus 30 degrees Celsius. Blizzards blinded their vision. French soldiers in summer uniforms froze to death by the thousands. When horses collapsed, they were instantly butchered and eaten raw just to survive. On top of that, the elite Russian Cossack cavalry appeared and disappeared like ghosts in the blizzard, constantly launching hit-and-run attacks on the shattered French columns. From a majestic army of 600,000 that shook the earth, by the time they crossed the Berezina River to reach safety, Napoleon had less than 100,000 men left. Over 500,000 men remained forever beneath the cold snow. A staggering defeat that completely crashed the invincible reputation of the emperor. Value bomb number 2. No matter if you are a tactical genius, no matter how perfect your product is, if you ignore logistics, ignore operations, and blindly rush into a market whose rules you don't fully understand, you will be eliminated. The news that Napoleon lost his main army in Russia spread like a match thrown into a powder keg. The entire European server woke up from a long nightmare. They realized the giant is bleeding. Let's gang up on him, boys! Britain, Russia, Prussia, Sweden, and even his Austrian father-in-law. Yes, the very father-in-law who just married his daughter off to Napoleon, all flipped sides, immediately signing the Sixth Coalition. This time, there was no dividing them. The entire continent combined forces to crush one single man. Napoleon desperately rode back to Paris, using all his god-tier management skills to spawn a brand new army, even though he had nothing but young, inexperienced conscripts. His tactical genius still helped France win the first few battles to prolong their final breath, but the enemy numbers were overwhelming, like a swarm of ants. All factions converged at the Battle of Leipzig in 1813, also known as the Battle of the Nations. This was the largest battle in European history before World War I, involving over 500,000 troops. Napoleon's army was encircled from all directions. Despite a fiercely resilient and bloody defense, the French were completely crushed by sheer numbers. Napoleon was forced to order a tactical retreat across a single bridge spanning the Ulster River. But tragically, a panicking corporal blew up the bridge way too early, while tens of thousands of French troops had yet to cross. Trapped behind, the army shattered, taken prisoner, or drowned in the freezing river. Napoleon's empire officially shut down. The coalition forces crossed the borders and marched straight into the capital, Paris. Even Napoleon's most trusted marshals, the brothers-in-arms who carried the team with him since his startup days, now stepped into the command tent and sighed, "Marshals, it's game over, boss. Let go of the mouse. Don't force our brothers to spill blood for nothing." In April 14, Napoleon gritted his teeth and signed the abdication papers, permanently giving up the throne. If you were Napoleon right after Leipzig, would you have accepted defeat and retired quietly? Or risked everything for one last insane comeback? Drop your honest answer in the comments right now. The coalition didn't execute Napoleon. Why? Because they were scared. They feared executing him would trigger a French rebellion and turn him into a martyr. Instead, they played a psychological exile game. They threw him onto a tiny island named Elba in the Mediterranean. They trolled him by letting him keep the title of emperor, but emperor of an island the size of a nostril, with a measly honor guard of a few hundred men. In Paris, the victorious nations threw parties and installed the brother of the decapitated king Louis XVIII as the new king of France, restoring the feudal monarchy. But this new king was overweight, sluggish, loved luxury, and forced the French back into harsh feudal laws, stripping away the liberties the revolution had brought. The citizens quickly got sick of it. French soldiers were fired, unemployed, and living in poverty. They began whispering in taverns, "I miss the Nap era. We were poor." But at least France was badass back then, respected wherever we went. And out on the island of Elba, do you think Napoleon was settling down to plant veggies and raise fish? No. He read the newspapers, tracked the continental situation daily, and smirked. This island is boring. You guys hijacked my account, but you play like noobs. Let me come back and be the admin. In February 1815, taking advantage of lax British guards, Napoleon led a few hundred loyal men, snuck onto a small ship, bypassed the British Navy and landed on the southern coast of France. When the news reached Paris, King Louis XVIII dropped his baguette in terror and immediately dispatched Marshal Ney along with a massive army to capture Napoleon and bring him back in an iron cage. And right at Grenoble, we witness one of the most badass main character scenes in human history, a purely cinematic maneuver. The two armies met. On one side, the fully armed royal army. On the other, Napoleon, with a few hundred aging guards. Unfazed, Napoleon ordered his guards to lower their weapons. He crossed his arms and walked unarmed straight toward the line of muskets aimed at him. When he got close enough, he ripped open his coat, his eyes piercing, and roared a world-shaking line. Napoleon. If any of you will shoot your emperor, shoot him now. 1 second. 2 seconds, dead silence. The hands of the royal soldiers trembled. Then, suddenly, from within the ranks, a soldier couldn't hold back his emotions and screamed soldier, "Vive l'Empereur!" instantly like a bomb detonating. The entire army sent to capture him threw down their guns, burst into tears, and ran to embrace their old boss. They kissed his boots, switching sides on the spot. Marshal Ney, who swore to capture Napoleon, also rushed over and knelt at his feet. On the march back to Paris, it wasn't a war. It was a musical parade. Any army sent to block his path automatically surrendered and merged into Napoleon's team. King Louis XVIII packed his bags in panic and fled the palace in the dead of night. Napoleon walked proudly into the Tuileries, reclaiming the throne without firing a single bullet, without spilling a single drop of blood. A global shockwave respawn. History calls this period the 100 Days. Hearing that Napoleon successfully unbanned his account, the European monarchs who were currently meeting in Vienna to carve up territory literally flipped their tables. Terrified, they instantly signed the Seventh Coalition, swearing to permanently delete this monster. This time, they didn't declare war on France. They declared war on Napoleon Bonaparte himself. Napoleon knew clearly if he sat still and let 1 million European troops surround him, he'd be crushed. The only way to turn the tables was to proactively strike and destroy each enemy army before they could group up. He immediately marched his 70,000 elite troops north, modern-day Belgium, to face the two largest armies stationed there, the Anglo-Dutch army, commanded by the Duke of Wellington, and the Prussian army, led by the old veteran Blücher. Opening strong. Napoleon battered Blücher's Prussians at Ligny, sending them running. He then dispatched General Grouchy with 30,000 men to chase and pin down the Prussians, while he turned to 1v1 Wellington. And on June 18th, 1815, at the fields of Waterloo, the World Finals, determining the fate of humanity, began. The Duke of Wellington was a master of defense, a true base camper. He brilliantly positioned his troops on a ridge, hiding the bulk of his infantry on the reverse slope to avoid France's devastating artillery fire. Unfortunately for Napoleon, it poured rain the night before, turning the Waterloo battlefield into a massive, muddy swamp. This is a crucial technical detail. Cannonballs back then were solid iron spheres. Their maximum damage wasn't from exploding, but from hitting hard ground and bouncing through enemy lines like bowling balls. But because the mud was so thick, the cannonballs would just sink deep into the sludge, losing 80% of their damage. Napoleon was forced to wait until noon for the sun to dry the ground before deploying his artillery. These few hours of delay were fatal. It gave the Prussian army extra time to return as reinforcements. When the battle erupted, the French attacked furiously, fighting house to house, tree to tree. But Wellington's defense was too solid. The next mistake belonged to French Marshal Ney. Seeing the British seemingly retreating, they were actually just stepping back to dodge artillery, Ney thought the enemy line was breaking. Without infantry support, he ordered a massive, blind cavalry charge. thousands of French cavalry charged up the hill, only to face British square formations bristling with bayonets and muskets. Without infantry to break the corners, horses will never charge into a wall of spears. The French cavalry rode frantically around the squares, getting shot down miserably, completely wasting France's most powerful mobile force. By late afternoon, Wellington's defense lines were fracturing and crumbling. Napoleon decided to play his ultimate trump card, the Empire's supreme weapon, quote, the Imperial Guard. Elite veterans who hadn't tasted defeat in 15 years. They marched forward, rhythmically, steadily up the hill, to the roar of drums. The entire battlefield held its breath. But just as they crested the ridge, Wellington stood in his stirrups and shouted, "Now, Maitland, now's your time." Thousands of British soldiers hiding in the tall grass stood up in unison, unleashing a devastating point-blank volley right into the faces of the French Guard. The front ranks collapsed, the Guard staggered, wavered, and for the first time in history, the Imperial Guard turned their backs and ran. The shout, "The Guard retreats," echoed across the field, landing a fatal psychological blow that shattered the entire French army. And right at that moment, a massive cloud of dust rose from the eastern horizon. It wasn't French General Grouchy, it was the Prussian veteran Blücher. General Grouchy had thrown the game by failing to block the Prussian advance. Tens of thousands of fresh Prussian troops slammed into the right flank of the French army. Caught in a pincer movement, counterattacked from the hill, Napoleon's army panicked and completely routed. The Battle of Waterloo ended in total defeat. This time, it was truly game over. After Waterloo, Napoleon returned to Paris and abdicated for the second time. This time, the European coalition wasn't playing around. No more offshore Elba Islands. They were determined to permaban this emperor's IP address. They escorted Napoleon onto a British warship and exiled him to St. Helena, a tiny, desolate, volcanic rock stranded in the middle of the South Atlantic Ocean, thousands of kilometers from the nearest mainland. The island was surrounded 24/7 by a fleet of British warships with cannons pointed out to sea in sheer vertical cliffs. Absolutely zero chance for a third respawn in this mid-ocean prison. The man who once made the whole world tremble, who crowned himself emperor with his own hands, was forced to live in a damp, rotting house called Longwood. In his final days, Napoleon could only write his memoirs, play chess, argue with the strict British governor, and do gardening. An incredibly quiet, melancholic end for a life so wildly loud and brilliant. 6 years later, on May 5, 1821, a massive storm hit St. Helena. Napoleon Bonaparte took his final breath at the age of 51. All official records state he died of stomach cancer, though to this day, conspiracy theories about the British slowly poisoning him with arsenic in the wallpaper remain a hot topic of debate. The final words that escaped the great commander's lips were, "Napoleon, France, the army. Head of the army, Josephine." From a broke provincial kid in Corsica, Napoleon used his God-given tactical genius, bottomless ambition, and insane grinding ability to manually redraw the entire political map of Europe. Yes, his empire collapsed, but the legacy he left behind did not. The Napoleonic Code he enacted is still the foundation for the legal systems of dozens of countries today. His reforms in education, the metric system, and the revolutionary ideals of equality followed the footsteps of his armies, taking permanent root across the continent. Napoleon permanently shattered the rotten shell of divine right feudalism and shaped the modern world we live in today. Value bomb number 3. Even if the empire falls, if your systems, laws, and ideas are powerful enough, they can outlast you and reshape the entire world. Bro may have lost his final battle at Waterloo, But the name Napoleon Bonaparte has become an immortal ideology, an endless source of inspiration, showing the absolute heights a human can reach if they have enough ambition. And that is the explosive career of the world's greatest short king. What do you guys think about his catastrophic misplays in Russia and his shocking comeback at Waterloo? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. And to understand exactly why Britain had the terrifying economic power to continuously dirty buff and fund 7 coalitions to defeat Napoleon, click right on the video showing on the screen. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next Addictive History Breakdown. Bye-bye.